Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 286 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. So happy you're tuning in for another week of Blue Jays talk, whether you're here live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We really appreciate it. We come live at you Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but don't worry, if you're not available, you're commuting or whatever have you, you can always catch up on previous episodes later through all of those channels. Look us up on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook. Click that subscribe button, and you'll get all the shows automatically. Notification will pop up, and it'll remind you to check us out. As well, don't forget, if you're not into the video platform, it's okay. If you'd rather have the audio, you can find Jays from the Couch podcast anywhere quality podcasts are found. And I'm your host, as always, Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. We've got a good episode for you this week. We've given Karen the night off. We've allowed her some freedom to live her life without Blue Jays talk, without myself, and the feckless wonder, Steve Feck. We're going to captain, co-captain, pilot, co-pilot, whatever you want to call it. We're without Karen. And Steve, I got to say, it's going to be fun, but there's nobody here to control us now.
I was just going to say, maybe we should run a little poll to see who is going to say the dumbest thing without Karen here. Because generally she's like the glue that kind of keeps us on the tracks. And I'm just wondering, I've got baseball Tourette's, so Lord knows what I'm going to say anytime. But without Karen here, you may be the brunt of.
Yeah, and one of the good things about doing the video version is that when I feel like I'm approaching a line of where I should and shouldn't go, I always have the visual of Karen's face right there to say, oh, nope, I need to rein it in, right? So anyway, Karen's off tonight. It's just you and I, Steve. Thank you, of course, as always, for joining me. We've got a great episode, though. Yeah, see, Matt already watching on YouTube. Matt can't believe it that Karen let us podcast together completely unsupervised. Well, Matt, if it makes you feel any better, my 4-year-old is staring at me through the window in the old office here. So I don't know. Maybe the only supervision we get is from a 4-year-old, but we'll see. Matt, you don't worry. Anybody watching at home, you can always comment and ask your questions live here. We'll put it up on the show just like Matt's. And Lionheart is here watching on YouTube as well. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, good to see you back.
Mm-hmm. We're developing quite a little regular following here, but anybody who's tuning in live now or later, whatever, don't forget you can ask your questions, leave your comments here, and maybe you can chip in on the old supervision, as it were. But anyway, Steve, we've got a great episode. We're going to start with the MLB Minute, a new segment we busted out last week, and we're going to talk about some potential flyers that the Blue Jays could take by looking around Major League Baseball. We're going to continue the discussion from last week where we looked at bench players. This time we'll look at role players on the pitching side, because aside from those who have set roles, there are actually quite a few question marks heading into the 2022 season. Of course, the lockout's still happening and CBA pending and all of that fun stuff, so additions can still happen. Right. But we'll talk about, as it stands right now, the bench pitchers, the role players, we'll call them. And, of course, we'll wrap up this episode 286 with our fake news segment. So it's going to be fun. I've got some items here, some fake news items that, oh, man, we'll see. Anyway, but before we get to all of that, Steve, in the Major League Baseball Minute, MLB Minute, I put up Jays from the Couch every Sunday. So for our watchers, viewers, listeners, everybody, don't forget that you can check that out every Sunday, where we just do a sweep around the league, see what's going on. And this week I decided, you know what, let's take a look at some potential players that other teams may look to cut ties with or whatever have you, for whatever reason, right? And it could be a million different reasons, right, Steve? Like player A is making too much money. Player B is an injury risk. Player C is in the way of prospect player D, right? So there's a, like Tampa Bay and Willie Adames, who's a fine shortstop.
Right.
But they had a finer shortstop in Wander Franco. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Oh, to be the Rays, an embarrassment of riches, as it were. So
it felt like they had a place to play.
Right. and people to watch them.
Yes.
Man, anyway. So I guess maybe, Steve, to start off with, when you look around baseball and you're looking at, okay, who could the Blue Jays maybe take a chance on, take a flyer on? What kind of player are you specifically looking for?
Well, now that the team is a legitimate, true contender, many people think that they're a World Series team. They need to find these little role players that can, again, not be stars, not get significant at bats, but be there and be productive when they're called on. Now, in your article today on JFtC.com, you brought up Josh Harrison.
Yeah.
Now, that's a guy that I was able to watch on a regular basis, because really his career blossomed once he came to Pittsburgh, and he just checks off all of the boxes. Good defender, not necessarily a Gold Glove defender, but he can play third. He can play a good third base, can play a good second base. He's played short if he has. He can play the corner outfield and not embarrass himself. So he checks off all the boxes. Great base runner, and he's smart. He doesn't steal a lot of bases because he picks his spots really well. He's not afraid to run, but he picks his spots and doesn't just run for the sake of adding up his stolen base total. So that's a guy, the type of player that I think every contending / championship team needs to have. Somebody that can not only play all over the place, but a veteran presence, keeps his cool, has good at bats. So that's the kind of guy that I would look at as far as taking a flyer on. And since I'm in Pittsburgh and we talked about a former Pittsburgh Pirate, a current Pittsburgh Pirate is Chris Stratton, who many people might remember from the beginning of his career with the Giants. He was a starting pitcher, but he has really evolved into a very effective situational lefty, and not situational like it used to be where it's one batter, two batter. If he has to go multiple innings, he's capable of doing that. If he needs to close, he can do that. And there is talk in Pittsburgh land that Chris Stratton might be, on the board. So that we'll talk more about pitching, in another segment. But that's the kind of pitcher that you also like to have on your team, because, again, you can never have enough pitching. It doesn't hurt to have a guy that can start, that can relieve. I think Stratton can probably do it better even than Ross Strippling can. I think Strippling is better either being just a reliever or being just a starter. So, I mean, those are the kind of pieces now that the Blue Jays have to look at. They don't need to necessarily have a guy that could be a regular player. It's somebody that can actually fill a role when he's called on.
Right. And similar to the role Howie Kendrick played with the Nationals.
Yes.
A couple of years back. And I think that, for me, Harrison fills that. Sure. However, I think that you only kind of go there in the situation of needing a third baseman. You only go there if you kind of swing and miss on some bigger targets, which was the point of the piece
right.
that you referenced. Even though some people missed that point, but so it goes. You know what I mean? Just like the sunset or the sunrise. Oh, did you see the beautiful sunrise this morning? Nah, I missed it. Same thing here. Did you get the point of Shaun's article this morning? Nah, I missed it. It happens. You're forgiven, right? Anyway, I kind of got off track there. But I do think, though, that there are players who could play a significant role. And I'm thinking of more aiming at guys like what they did with Kirby Yates. Take a flyer. If he's healthy and effective, bingo, Bob's your uncle. You've got yourself a late inning reliever. If not, okay, well, you tried it, right? Which is way different, Steve, I think, than years ago, going back to the Alex Anthopoulos era of trying to catch lightning in a bottle, take a flyer on this guy in the hopes that he's something.
Right.
The Blue Jays are now in a situation where you just take a flyer because if it works out, great. It's just gravy at this point. But if it doesn't work out, you haven't lost anything. And so I think there's a little bit more risk that you can take on there, first of all. So in the article, I mentioned a guy like Chris Paddock of the Padres, who I think if you look at the overall body of work, I'm not so sure we can necessarily put him in that flyer category because I think the ceiling of where Chris Paddock can be, the Padres are certainly going to assume he is that again, and that 2021 was just a write-off or whatever. However, we have seen in the past, though, that the value of a player goes down after a season like that. So maybe, the Blue Jays could look to bank on a bounce back from him, much in the way of Robbie Ray. It's a possibility, and that would give them, at worst, it would give them the fifth starter they need. At best, it would give them like 3-4 top of the rotation arms in a year where, as you said, they're supposed to be incredibly competitive, right? So for me, I would be looking at something like that, because if it works, oh man, think about the impact, right?
Right. And with Chris Paddock, I think that allows the Jays to comfortably keep Pearson in the bullpen and putting him in that leverage situation, not to close. They have a closer, but Nate Pearson coming in 6th, 7th, even 8th inning with his stuff and just saying, Nate, you're not pacing yourself. You're just letting it go. I think that's what Pearson, as much as I was comparing him to Roger Clemens and Doc Gooden when he first was going to come up, I think he's going to be a terrific back the bullpen guy for somebody, hopefully the Blue Jays, but for somebody, that's going to be his role eventually. If you get a guy like Paddock with that kind of ceiling and he works out like Ray did, then you're talking now suddenly a lot of the pitching questions go away.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And I mean, the Blue Jays are going to have to pay for that flyer. So it's not a traditional flyer in the sense of the things we kind of mentioned already. We've got Rachel watching on Facebook. Rachel, a buddy of mine. Thank you, Rachel, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. How important is it that the piece that they need also be a leader in the clubhouse? And that's an excellent question. And Steve, you come from a more educated baseball background than myself. You have a lot more experience to draw upon. So I'm going to let you lead off with this great question from Rachel on Facebook.
Well, I think it depends on the team. But in the case of the Blue Jays, Marcus Semien proved how valuable a quality clubhouse guy can be to the development of your young players. You also have these players, Vladdy, Bo, Kevin Biggio, whose fathers were major leaguers. So they're more used to being in a clubhouse and used to seeing older players helping younger players. So I think that sets a terrific tone for you. And that's why I brought up a Josh Harrison. I mean, if they needed an outfielder, I would have mentioned Andrew McCutchen, because I mean, it's that kind of guy that, if he's not playing every day, honestly, they're not going to say much, not going to cause disruption. That veteran presence is huge. So I think, again, that's a great question, Rachel. But I think for the Blue Jays, I think it's very important. They have Springer. They have Grichuk. Though I don't know that Grichuk's really a veteran leader type. They can use another veteran presence, I think, on that bench to kind of keep things in perspective, keep people in line if they're getting out of line or if they're getting too frustrated. I think that would be as important as whatever projections are or whatever, the stats are. I think that presence is super uber important.
Yeah, and I think like if you look at somebody like Marcus Semien, who you mentioned, the impact he had on Bo Bichette is not something that can be quantified by any statistic. But Bo himself got choked up when he was talking about the impact that Marcus Semien had. And with a young team, this is still a young team, still trying to grow into what they will become. I think the having a veteran, not just as a parent or a coach, but somebody who plays alongside you, who's kind of at the same level you are, but who has seen and done more. I think there's value to that for a young team to help mold where, to kind of keep everything even keeled, because younger players tend to get caught up in a lot of emotion, positive or negative, all ends of the spectrum. And to kind of, don't get too high, don't get too low, kind of even keeled, so I think there's that. There's little things like that I just think are incredibly important on a team like, I would say maybe Pittsburgh, who is rebuilding. There's a type of veteran that they will need. There's, get used to the big leagues, that kind of thing. For the Blue Jays, there's a different type of veteran that they're going to need. And that's somebody who can kind of show them how to win, because this club's going to win. They just by being themselves, but how you go about doing that, handling the pressure of being expected to win and all of that, right? I think that finding the right veteran for that final add-on piece is huge. It's just like having another coach, and they did it with I can't believe Omar Vizquel years ago. They brought him in to kind of mentor everybody and gave him a job, even though he probably was a year or two beyond where he should have retired. But so it's not crazy. But I love your point about it needs to match the club, right? Yes. And that means that it's not just any addition that'll do, right?
But I think that's why Freddie Freeman is so intriguing to so many Blue Jay fans. I don't know logistically how in the world it would work. And I'm not talking about money. I don't know how do you move Vladdy again? Though I believe he can be an outfielder. I know you and Karen think I need to get back on my medicine, but I really do think Vladdy could play the outfield. But that kind of guy that's been there, that's had adversity in his life, as well as, as a ball player, he comes into that clubhouse. Suddenly now you don't miss Marcus Semien. You've got a guy that's been there, that's been to the World Series, that's gone on many deep playoff runs. So as the team is getting closer to September, gearing up for the playoffs, these guys Freddie can say, look, you're pressing. You might not think you're pressing, but you're pressing. So just step back, take a deep breath, and go.
Yeah. We've got a couple more comments here. Matt watching on YouTube again. The cost for Paddock will be very high. I don't disagree. In fact, I'm pretty sure I said that, Matt. I'm joking, Matt. I agree. It's going to be high. However, Matt's next comment might be, the injury concerns are a little worrisome. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was on the COVID list 3 times last year. So, he's a whole hot mess of injury time last season, right? So that, whether it's founded or not, that's a concern. And if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm leading off with that, right?
Sure. Now, though, again, I think Paddock's injuries are more of a result of the pitching philosophy that San Diego applies. Almost all of their young pitchers have gotten hurt.
Right.
That's telling me that either down as they were developing, or what they're trying to ask them to do in the major leagues, they're forcing a square peg into a round hole in many, many cases. So I think that, you have to look at that as well. I mean, when you have a guy like Pete Walker, an organization that has, with Walker in place, they have a flexibility as far as their pitching philosophy. I think Paddock, you kind of swallow it and say, you know what, it's worth the gamble because you're probably trading prospects, and that's why you have prospects,
right?
To trade them for people like Chris Paddock.
Yeah, and Matt's got a good point here. From last September, an injection in his right elbow earlier this week, make a full recovery from a slight UCL sprain. Now, if that doesn't scream potential Tommy John, I don't know what will. And if that doesn't knock his price down in a potential trade, I don't know what will. Lionheart on YouTube as well has a trade idea. Marte take on Bumgarner's contract, which is not small, but it's a thought that Lionheart had. And you know what? If that might serve to take the prospect cost of Marte down by taking, because let's be real, I don't know if anybody, including the Diamondbacks, know what the Diamondbacks are doing right now. So why not go in and you guys go ahead while you're circling, trying to chase your tail and all that stuff. We'll just take this one and this one. Thank you very much. And we'll give you this one and this one. Thank us later. Go back to chasing your tail. It's an interesting idea, actually, that could serve the Blue Jays well. Get Ketel Marte and that fifth starter, who, let's be real, it's not the Madison Bumgarner of years ago, the World Series Giants years, but you don't need him to be that. Exactly.
The only problem with that question, with that proposal, Lionheart, is I believe Bumgarner, it's not a no trade. He's got a very limited amount of teams he would go to, and he made it a point of saying, I want to stay on the West Coast when he signed in Arizona. So that would be the only hitch that I would have with that, though I'm sure if you throw enough money his way, sweeten the deal to buy. Well, no, I mean, again, you offer to either guarantee certain years or put extra bonus clauses in the contract to get him to waive whatever objection.
Oh, yeah. No. There's a logistical way to do it. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if Lionheart is actually Madison Bumgarner right now saying, get me the hell out of Arizona. Anyway, so the MLB Minute segment has been over 20 minutes. So we're going to move quickly into talking about pitching. And I do want to hit on a couple of them, right? Because we have Ross Stripling, who needs a role. So very quickly, Steve, because we've got our fake news, which is everybody's favorite anyway. Where does Ross Stripling fit into this whole pitching situation? Is he a starter? Is he an opener? Is he a mop up? Is he what does this man? Where does he fit?
Well, I think he needs a defined role to be effective. I don't know that Stripling, as talented as he is the type of pitcher you need to get the Blue Jays to the promised land. I think Ross Stripling fits in well in Anaheim, where he almost went anyway. But before he got traded to the Blue Jays, he almost went to Anaheim. I think he needs to go somewhere else, bring in some bullpen arms, bring in prospect capital, bring in a bench player, a left-handed hitter, whatever it's going to be. They've been talking about having guys, go there. Jays could take on a contract that could take on Upton's contract. I think there's 1 year left on it. It's a big money, but you know what? For a championship run, send Stripling, take on Upton's contract. If you want to give him Grichuk to kind of offset the Upton money, fine. But I don't think Stripling has a defined role with this team now. He did in 2020. I don't know going into 2022 that Stripling has a role with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time swallowing he's our starter. I'm having a hard time swallowing that with Ross Stripling as the fifth starter. When he was on, he was on. There, I'm not going to take anything away from him in that regard. However, how often was he on? And at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't even matter because we're talking about the fifth starter job here. We're not talking about, is he the ace of the pitching staff? They don't need him to be, just like Madison Bumgarner doesn't need to be, right? So maybe fifth starter is just fine. But here's the problem. When you have lower expectations for that starting spot, but let's say 4 starts in a row, he goes 4 innings, that doesn't just impact that one individual. That's an entire pitching staff, right? So I wish I had a clearer picture. Maybe Ross Stripling is 3 innings. That's it. Once through the order, get out, and then Ryu can make a complete game.
Another 3 innings, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the old Chuck Tanner strategy of he always thought, I want to have a starter go 3 innings and a reliever go 3 innings and another reliever go 3 innings and just keep doing that throughout the week and just have the same guys, match them up the best you can and just have 3-3-3 and that's it.
Right. And I don't know because I don't buy Ross Stripling as a 1-inning reliever.
Oh,
no. Like that's just silly. So it'll be interesting because I wonder that they're going to have to figure it out, and is this, yes, he can start. Is that to, I don't know. I don't want to say influence other moves or negotiations, but is it, we don't need a fifth starter. We have Ross Stripling. Well, okay, cool. You got me. I guess I'll move on. Joke's on you, Blue Jays. That's it's difficult, right? But then there are other guys too, has Tim Mayza solidified himself in the bullpen? I know you're a huge Mayza fan, so but is there any, and Lionheart, Lionheart is getting closer and closer to my heart.
Matt's going to get jealous. Careful, Matt will get jealous.
Listen, there's plenty of Doyle to go around. Don't worry. So another guy I wanted to talk about, though, with Tim Mayza, kind of, I'm with you in that boat. Ryan Borucki, where does he sit? He at one time that changeup was drool worthy. And he's had his share of run-ins with injury and all of that stuff. Is he a 1-inning guy? Is he a multiple inning guy? At this point, I'm inclined to say the 1 inning. Or is he a AAA guy?
There always seems to be interest. You always see Borucki's name come up with different organizations. So I don't know, is he a trade piece? But I would only want him to go 1 inning. I don't know. He seems to press more, the longer he's had longer outings. Not that he's had a lot of them, but he seems to press more. He's fine for that first inning, but then he just seems to try to force the ball to places. And I just think Borucki might be better served moving on. But if you stick him, at Buffalo, that's good. I mean, that's fine. He's a guy that can come up and fill a role because injuries are going to happen, especially now with spring training being compromised. No matter what they say, spring training is not going to be spring training. I don't have the faith in Borucki whatsoever. I really don't.
So Trent Thornton, then, is he AAA and then kind of next man up, or because I don't see him as a reliever either?
No, he's not a reliever. Is he? He's out of options, right?
Oh, I'd have to double check. I believe at this point, he probably is.
Yeah, so if he doesn't make the team out of spring training, they're probably going to lose him. He's the Pittsburgh boy. I know Ben Cherington always seems to like him and spoke highly of him when he was in the organization. But, I can't see Thornton sneaking through waivers where you're going to be able to stick him in the minors. And I don't think Trent is very happy with the way that he's been used, because you're going to start, you're going to be a reliever, you're going to be an opener, reliever, starter. You don't really know. So I don't know that Trent Thornton would feel bad about being moved on or being released and getting a new lease on life.
Yeah. And you know what? I can't blame him.
No.
If he feels like he was mishandled, I wouldn't disagree. And I just looked up, actually, Trent Thornton, it says here on Fangraphs, he has 2 major league options or minor league options remaining, whereas it's, as Matt says, Borucki has none. In which case, I think you're bang on. Try and get him into a package, trade him, or use him as the 1-inning guy, and that's it. That's his role. You got 2 lefties out of the pen. There's nothing wrong with that. There are worse situations for your bullpen, right? All right. Other than that, though, Steve, when you look at the Blue Jays pitching staff as a whole, they actually don't have a whole lot of question mark spots. The roles are pretty set. You've got your 4 starters in Gausman, Barrios, Ryu, and Manoah. You've got that 5th starter spot. Who knows? Right now it's Ross Stripling. It won't be by the time the season rolls around. That's my guess. And then in the bullpen, guys like Jordan Romano, Yimi Garcia, Tim Mayza. And I think that what's standing out to me is that there aren't a lot of up in the air situations here. And even if there are, the Blue Jays do have depth that they can rely on. The problem is it's not the lockdown, shutdown depth that a playoff team kind of, I don't want to say needs, but I kind of want to say needs.
I don't know that. I disagree that they have the pitching depth, because I really think that they have miscast so many of the young guys like Borucki, Thornton. They really haven't given guys like Kay a shot. So I don't know that the depth is there, because I don't think they really know what they have, because they were developing a lot of these guys as starters, and then suddenly they were forcing them into relief roles that they just weren't ready for. And I found it very interesting in last year's draft that 18 of the 20 picks were pitchers, and almost all of them were college pitchers that could be on a fast track. For me, that was Atkinson tipping his hand saying, you know what, maybe these guys can't do what we envision them to do, not what they're capable of doing, but what we envision, the roles we have for them. So I really wonder. I mean, David Phelps, okay, great. That's a track record. Is he someone that you could really depend on? Yimi Garcia, he's been a closer. He's got good stuff. Is he consistent? He's kind of Rafael Dolis, except that he doesn't take an hour and a half between pitches. Of all the things with the Blue Jays, I'm really nervous about the bullpen. And it's the one thing in Montoyo's armor that I don't know that he's proven that he knows how to manage a bullpen. Last year it's hard for him, because he was forced to have certain pitchers take on certain roles that they just were not equipped to fill. So last year, I'll kind of give him a pass, but I don't know that he has shown that he can manage a big league bullpen in a pennant race. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah, Matt has a good point here that if you find you need the shutdown reliever, they're usually available at most trade deadlines. And you know what? I don't disagree at all. Matt's on fire this week. I think that actually, regardless of what happens the rest of the offseason, I think you will see Toronto target a bullpen arm, at least one, at the trade deadline. Why wouldn't you?
Right. But I'm sorry, there's baseball games from March 31st to July 31st. And that's where the Blue Jays season got torpedoed last year, is they waited. Oh, we have the depth. We have pitching depth. We got it. We got it. We don't got it. So they went out and got the Simbers and
And Trevor Richards, yeah.
That's the other guy. I lost his mind. Trevor Richards, yes. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear we can target him at the deadline. They're going to do that anyway, like all contending teams do,
Right.
to add to the bullpen depth for a pennant stretch. But you need to get there first. They can't be playing around like they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
They just simply cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Obviously, we're in kind of a limbo right now, given that they are having difficulty working out a contract. I still have faith we're not going to lose baseball because I heard, I can't remember where I heard this. I'll have to look it up. But there was a recent survey. Only 10% of the people surveyed are actually worried about losing baseball. The more alarming fact was that most people don't care about baseball right now. I get it. It's the winter. You got football, you got hockey, you got basketball, all happening. I get it. But Major League Baseball has to look at that and say, holy hell, what are we doing? Like they're and the players too.
Well, I'm going to say the MLBPA has to look at that right now. And almost unanimously in the media types, former ball players that have been through the big strike in 94, 95 and all, keep saying, I don't understand what the union is thinking. I don't understand why there's not a sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's what concerns me with the whole CBA thing is that I get it. It's a process. There's all this give and take. But if you're not ready to ramp up baseball after the Super Bowl, yeah, you might as well wait until July to start watching, really, because it's, the basketball playoffs will be there. The Stanley Cup playoffs are going to be there, and that's important, not only just in Canada, but in the United States as well. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. I don't know. I think, it is concerning that it is dragged on at the pace that it has.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I think that, there is time. And spring training is too long anyway, if you ask me. So there is time. And if you're the players, urgency is not your best negotiating tool. So, you don't necessarily want to jump in. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. It is time for my favorite segment of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. It is fake Blue Jays news, not real. We make stuff up to entertain ourselves mostly, and hope that those watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or listening anywhere you find a podcast, and we hope that you enjoy it as much as we do, because we're having a blast. All right. And on that note, Jays from the Couch proudly presents fake Blue Jays news. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Shaun. Now, many of you have already noticed I'm sporting a Montreal Expos cap this evening, and I'm not doing this only to show support for baseball fans in Montreal and Quebec, but also to let them know that baseball may just be returning to Montreal after all. Despite the MLB Brainless Trust ending consideration of the sister city partnership between Tampa and Montreal, the Toronto Blue Jays intend to approach the commissioner's office and the MLBPA about partnering with the city of Montreal to bring Major League Baseball back to the city. Now, it won't be a true timeshare agreement. The Blue Jays won't formally schedule regular season games in Montreal, but the team will schedule regular exhibition games and seek advance authorization to move games to Montreal should Rogers Center become unavailable due to stadium failure or COVID restrictions or acts of the baseball gods. Jays management has committed, however, to diverting the team charter to Montreal on the return home from road trips and make the players available to wave to fans from the tarmac before departing for Toronto. Now, as we're discussing, owner and union reps will be meeting again this week to try to hammer out a new collective bargaining agreement. There is one proposal that has not gotten much publicity or consideration that would have a huge impact on some young Blue Jay players. In an effort to facilitate higher salaries for pre-arb and arbitration-eligible players, the owners have proposed a way for teams to offer a 5-year maximum qualifying offer, similar to the ones utilized in the NBA. The catch, players eligible for such an offer would need to not only be originally drafted or signed by the team that they are on currently, but also born in that team's designated territory. In the case of Toronto, it would apply to all Canadian-born players. While it would only apply to less than a handful during any given offseason, the players currently eligible for such a windfall deal expressed their delight. "Yeah, baby," shouted Jordan Romano when contacted by Jays from the Couch for his comments. "Suck it, Mitch Marner. Who's going to be the highest paid player from Markham, Ontario now?" Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made the rounds of Montreal sports radio shows, repeating his new mantra, "Je suis un habitant." It should be noted that Freddie Freeman's parents were born in Ontario, but their children were born in California, so the Jays would not be able to offer a maximum contract like this to Freeman. But it is interesting to note that there were reports that Freeman was spotted earlier today entering the Canadian Immigration and Citizenship Administrative offices in Sydney, Nova Scotia, to fill out paperwork just in case. And, oh, holy crap. This just in, the owners of the MLBPA have broken off negotiations on a new CBA after a disagreement over the color ink to be used when signing the final document. The commissioner's office just released a statement saying the two sides had agreed on the most contentious aspects of the negotiations, such as dispensing Coke or Pepsi during in-person talks, ordering self-serve deli trays or pre-made sandwich rings for meals, and using either mayo or Miracle Whip on the tables. But the owners always want to end up in the black, so they can never agree to the use of blue ink to sign a collective bargaining agreement. The union is insisting on using blue ink to reflect their sadness over not getting everything they want in the new agreement. And MLBPA Union Chief Tony Clark huffed, "From now on, the owners are going to have to call and apologize first before we consider returning to the bargaining table. And we will refuse to hang up any call until the owners, hang up first." We'll have more details as they become available. Over to you, Shaun.
Oh, I could just picture them. "No, you hang up. No, you hang up." If only it were that cute. Oh, man. And if you're going to become a Canadian citizen, I don't know if the Sydney, Nova Scotia is where you want to do it. But that's an aside.
Well, that's where the main offices are. I think that's the central processing area.
Ooh, okay. In other fake news, everyone around baseball is releasing their top 100 prospects lists. And you'll note the Toronto Blue Jays have anywhere from 4 to 5, maybe, players. People like Gabriel Moreno, typically the highest ranked Blue Jay. However, what you may notice also is you may be surprised to learn that Tampa Bay Rays outfielder Randy Arozarena is in the top 3 of every list and will defend his Rookie of the Year award in his 4th Major League season in 2022. Oh my God. Nope. Got to stay in character. In other news, the Blue Jays have decided to really turn on the hot stove. In a conversation with Ross Atkins, Jays from the Couch has learned that the club has a clever strategy for signing free agents. Under the current lockout, teams are not permitted to sign free agents unless they're on minor league deals. So, Ross Atkins will be offering minor league deals to Chris Bryant, Clayton Kershaw, Kenley Jansen, and Michael Conforto. When asked why he thinks any of these guys would agree, Atkins simply said, "They'll be the best damn minor league contracts you have ever seen." The man's a genius, just a genius. And finally, in other collective bargaining news, Jays from the Couch has learned that the Major League Baseball Players Association will be seeking a complete overhaul of Hall of Fame voting system. The players would like to have players voting rather than stuck-up writers. Major League Baseball Players Association cites silly ballots designed by egomaniac writers as their reasoning. In making the decision, in considering this decision, Rob Manfred has 2 angels sitting on his shoulders. On the right, he has Barry Bonds, former player, snubbed off the Hall of Fame ballot. And on the other side, he has John Paul Morosi sitting there saying, "Don't forget me, don't forget me, don't forget me. I need to stay relevant. Don't forget me." And that has been fake Blue Jays news. Steve, I can't stop doing the fake news. And just to before we get out of here, first of all, where is it? I've lost it. Oh, first of all, Lionheart wanted to thank us for the questions and all of that stuff. And Lionheart, it is us who owes you a thank you.
Absolutely.
So Rachel put this up when fake news started, her favorite segment. Rachel, thank you so much. Appreciate that. I can't tell you. That was something that just, anyway, and it's exploded in such a great way, and I'm glad you were enjoying it. And lastly, Lionheart chimes in with Canadian money on par with American money. It's in the new CBA. That is a fake news item. That is genius. Genius. Oh, man. The Toronto Blue Jays are pushing hard for that one. 29 other owners are like, no thanks. But anyway. All right. So we're just about out of time here. We've gone on for quite a while. So, Steve, let everybody know how they can follow you and what's on tap for the On Feck Circle tomorrow.
You can follow me on Twitter at Feckless Wonder on the On Feck Circle. I had an original idea, but we're going to talk about, since again, I'm a Pennsylvania guy. It's going to be Punxsutawney Phil coming out of his hole on Wednesday. We're going to talk about, are the Blue Jays going to see their shadow, where there's 6 more long weeks of winter for them? Or are they going to be okay? Is spring here and our thoughts going to start warming up about their playoff possibilities?
I love it. I love it. Don't forget, the On Feck Circle is Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Just look for Jays from the Couch on all 3 of those. Subscribe, and you'll get the notifications, and you'll know every time we go live, where you can ask your questions and comments as well. Tonight was a great episode for that. I want to thank Matt and Rachel and Lionheart for your contributions. First of all, thank you. It means so much that you just tune in. But second of all, that you contribute to our show as much as we are. And that means a lot to me. So thank you both, all of you, for that. Don't forget, jaysfromthecouch.com, your place for quality Blue Jays content. The podcast available anywhere you find podcasts. Apple, it's all over the place. Look us up, subscribe there as well. So, for all of us, Lionheart continues to just grab onto my heart. An excellent, outstanding stream tonight. Thank you very much, Lionheart. Stay safe. I hope you do as well. So for Steve, for everybody watching at home, for all of us at jaysfromthecouch.com, this is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.
Feel better, Karen.